Hey everyone, welcome to your first video lesson. Today we're going to go over 11.3, solving inequalities using multiplication and division. Take a moment to write down the heading of 11.3, solving inequalities using multiplication and division. Pause the video now. When we're looking at multiplication and division properties of inequality, this will always be true. If you multiply or divide each side of an inequality by a positive number, the inequality remains true. Examples are down below. We can see that if we have negative 4 is less than 6, if you positive 2, you're left with negative 8 is greater than 12. That statement is true. For 4 is greater than negative 6, if I divide both sides by negative 2, as you can see right here, then you're left with 4 divided by 2 is 2, negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3, and 2 is greater than negative 3. Pause the video and copy what you see. Let's take a look at another case. Here's another property of inequality when we're using a negative number. If you multiply or divide each side of an inequality by a negative number, the direction of the inequality must be reversed to remain true. Pause the video to write the definition now. Below you can see are two inequalities. Negative 4 is less than 6. If I multiply each side of my equation by a negative number, like negative 2, I will be left with negative 2 times negative 4 and negative 2 times 6. I must switch my sign so that it remains true. Once you multiply it out, you're left with 8 is greater than negative 12. I switched the signs because if I didn't, then it would not be true. Next, I have 4 is greater than negative 6. If I divide both sides by a negative 2, then I'm left with 4 divided by negative 2 and negative 6 divided by negative 2. If I don't switch my sign, I'm left with negative 3 is greater than 3. But I know that would be false. So that is why I switch my sign. So I have negative 3 is less than 3. Pause the video to write down the example below. Now let's take a look at our example. We have x divided by 5 is less than or equal to negative 3. We will also graph the solution. For this problem, it looks like we have 1/5 x is less than or equal to negative 3. If I do this, my first step would be to multiply by the reciprocal. If I'm multiplying by the reciprocal, I'm multiplying each side by 5 over 1. 5 over 1. Pause the video and solve the rest from here. Play the video to check your answer. Once you solve the problem, you should be left with x equals x is less than or equal to negative 15. Once you multiply it out and simplify, that is your solution. When you're graphing this, make sure that you're including the solutions that make the most sense. So for negative 15, I know that x is less than negative 15. So I'm going to draw a shaded circle and shade the direction that I'm going. I know that everything that is less than negative 15 will be a solution. Our next example is to solve negative 3x is less than 9, and then graph the solution. Make sure that you're rewriting the problem, just like how you see. Because I have a negative 3 times x, I want to undo the multiplication of negative 3 times x. So I must divide each side by negative 3. Pause the video and complete solve for x and then graph the solution. Your final solution should be that x is greater than negative 3. I switched the signs, and that's why x is now greater than negative 3. I know that this is the solution because once I graphed it, I can take any one of these solutions to the right of negative 3 and plug it in. If I have a point of 1 and I plug it into my equation, I would have negative 3 times 1 is less than 9. If I did that, I would have negative 3 is less than 9, and I know that is true. For these next 3 problems, I want you to try out these 3 by pausing the video to do the work and then play the video to check your work. For number 1, we have negative 5a is greater than 10. I divide both sides by negative 5. That causes my sign to switch. So I'm left with a 8 is less than negative 2. For number 2, I'm left with negative 2/5 times x is less than or equal to 6. This problem I times by the negative reciprocal, so I get x by itself, so I multiply negative 5/2 by both sides. Once I multiply this out, I'm left with x is greater than or equal to negative 30/2. Once I simplify, I'm left with x is greater than or equal to negative 15. And for number 3, because we have negative 4x is greater than or equal to 12, I must divide both sides by negative 4, and I'm left with x is less than or equal to negative 3. All right, everyone. If you have any questions, please send me an email, and I'll see you all later.